and welcome to Transforming Language Education, the vodcast series where we will talk about the future of teaching, inquiry, and advocacy in language education. I'm Jen Crawford.
And I'm Rob Philback. Please like or subscribe if you want to join us in helping to transform language education.
Welcome everyone to Transforming Language Education. We're here with Eric Yang. Eric is an alumni of the Rossier School of Education MAT TESOL program. He's an ed tech and language consultant, founder of Bilingual Lens, an ecosystem of social media platforms that serves 130,000 English learners and 7,000 enrolled students. In our first episode, we heard from Eric about his sort of journey from accomplished teacher to entrepreneur in this online language learning space, and we're excited now to talk with him about his current research topic, critical media literacy.
That's right, Rob. This is a topic that's particularly near and dear to our hearts. Eric, you're a doctoral student now at the University of British Columbia, and we'd love to talk to you more about your research focus of critical media literacy and what led you to choose this topic as an English language teacher and now researcher.
Well, thank you for having me again, Robert and Jen. So I think with most research, it's the research topic that found me rather than me finding the research topic. I ended up with a potentially political sensitive topic. And even though that was not what I initially wanted to do, but I don't think you can really hide your ontology, basically how we see the world, and epistemology, how we come to know the world. These things cannot be hidden in graduate research. And when one of my professors read my paper, he mentioned that, Eric, you view the world as being in constant conflict and there are no truths. And, I was trying to hide this from him, but he saw right through me. And it comes from my experience in working for both the private and public sectors of education, and also serving as a language consultant to policymakers on a national level here in Taiwan. So I witnessed and experienced power in politics, I think, on multiple levels. And that has really shaped how I view the world. I can't simply escape it and write on a topic like effective SLA approaches in Taiwan, yes, which I believe would be relatively straightforward for me to do. But I don't think that kind of topic really captures how I see the world and, what changes I hope to explore and possibly affect.
That's so interesting. And just to dig a bit deeper on that question, how does critical media literacy allow you a lens to sort of dig more deeply into what you're explaining is this context of 21st century language learning, where our students are using multiple modalities in both with language input and output. Our students are encountering and using multiple languages across their linguistic repertoires. And our students are using social media tools and new media and creating language and sharing language in new ways that maybe we hadn't thought of 20, 30 years ago. So how does this particular lens help you understand this moment of language learning?
Well, I think language education, or more specifically language learning, needs to extend far beyond just the scope of conventional literacy, which is decoding textual codes and drawing one set of meaning from these codes, to fully comprehending what's behind the meaning of words that we tend to accept. For example, what's the meaning of education, or what's the meaning of the word justice, and what is even the meaning of truth? Now, this question comes up all the time, especially during midterm elections or whatnot. Yes. And, how can we teach higher level learners these words and concepts and without teaching what they mean to different people? I don't think that language educators, especially when they deal with college level or adult learners, can skimp on the interpretation of information and the processes that standardize these interpretations, especially when we see these terms used in media in our surroundings on a daily basis.
It makes me think of this old idea that I think is still particularly relevant, of Paulo Freire said, we have to teach students to read the world and the word. And that's something we've been really thinking hard about, is what does it mean to engage students as active citizens in a democracy through their learning process? And I know that's something you think about.
Thank you. Yeah, so Keller and Scher, professors from UCLA, it's Trojan Week, isn't it? Should I be mentioning UCLA?
It's okay. I had both of them as professors when I was at UCLA. Great deal of respect for both. For both
they view critical media
and
literacy. They view critical media literacy pedagogically. They say that critical media literacy not only expands on literacy to include diverse modes of mass communication, but also harnesses the potential to critically analyze relationship between media, audiences, information, and power. So, educators can use critical media literacy to cultivate students' skills to interpret language, news, information on social media by analyzing conventions and criticizing stereotypes and actively challenging dominant values. It essentially gives them the power to take back questioning, and they can question the status quo. And I think if language instructors take this approach, they open up an entirely new world to the students, as well as empower their students and also provide them with agency to affect change.
Eric, so this is fascinating and it clearly a research topic that you're passionate about and living out now as a doctoral student. How do you see this either coming from your experience as a teacher or working into your teaching? In other words, you've got students that you're working with now. Are you starting, or have you been already starting to work some of these things that you're talking about in terms of really facilitating this kind of critical media literacy understanding among your students?
Well, I think in one of the online courses I produce, it's on news literacy. So I'm essentially providing students with different lenses they can use to analyze news. Being a social media content creator myself and also a teacher, I'm actually in the middle of producing information. It's a question posed to me as a lot. Well, you are manipulating information on, as a content creator. Like, how can you criticize this issue and teach students media literacy? And I think it's exactly that, of me being in the middle of all this, that I'm able to provide students with, I think, a unique lens to view content creation. And by giving them the digital tools and the literacies they need to push back against some of the norms and information that they're exposed to, I'm giving them the tools based on my experience as a content creator to become more nuanced and well-informed civic participants.
Well, and I want to follow up on that question because it seems like place and position can really inform to what degree you're able to encourage and engage in interrogating power about social issues and encouraging social action through language. So I wondered if you could talk a little bit more about how your various locations, whether across the world, have informed that work that you've done, and also how social media tends to transcend borders. So how you negotiate those various places and your own positionality as both a teacher and researcher.
Thank you. And I think positionality is a good term to encompass all these ideas. For me, positionality is essentially how my background has shaped the lens I use to view issues. And that can be divided into a twofold explanation. First, for my social political identity, I'm ethnically Chinese. I was born in Taiwan, but I immigrated to the US as a young age. So I returned and worked in Taiwan for 15 years, and not just in Taiwan, in China, in Japan as well. So, I view the world through a lens, not only as a person who is proficient in Mandarin, but someone who has lived in the West for an extended period of time. And also professionally, I had worked in private and public education and consulted policymakers. So I think I'm equipped with the sensitivities needed to navigate these complex social political issues of my proposed research. I think my lens and my background position me to lean towards U.S. and Taiwan narratives on these political issues. There's also different identities, me as a teacher, a content creator, and just an online personality, right? But I think these unique identities have provided me with a unique advantage in parsing the interwoven political, cultural, and social context that my proposed research is situated in. And I think if you're looking at an issue, you can't just be an insider. This goes back to Buckingham's conception of what it means to be a competent explorer of another culture. You have to remain outside of it while being equipped with some insider skills as well. And I am mindful of my differences and biases, but I think it's only through the acknowledgement of my positionality can I hope to further explore and influence Taiwan's university students by providing them with both an exterior and interior view of the unique conditions that they live in.
Thanks for that. That's great. One of the pillars of our program is really to help our students think about how they can become, as language educators, advocates for language learners, for languages writ large, issues related to languages and language learning. If you were just to, think of small steps, let's say someone's listening and their place or position maybe makes this seem really difficult or challenging, what are some small steps that you might encourage others to take if they want to think about becoming more competent explorers of the world in the context of their role as language teachers?
Critical media literacy has enabled me to make recommendations to existing media literacy, pending my research results, of course. But I recognize that not every instructor is able to do this, depending on the regime they live in and stuff. I think as a teacher, we can begin these difficult discussions by first not just thinking, but listening to students and where they're coming from before we embark on a journey of self-reflection and discussion with our peers. Critical media literacy doesn't always have to be active civic movements in the beginning. That's where we like to move towards, where we're actually affecting change. But it can be other forms of pushback and resistance. For example, questioning and interrogating power, and even just looking at the definition of words, and even through non-participation of things we find unethical. So I think critical media literacy for me is a useful lens that all educators, not only language educators, can use to examine the things that we take for granted in everyday life, and give voice to, give a new lens to students to examine these issues, and also give them a guideline for voicing their opinions and to be able to affect change in the long run. That is the goal, but I do recognize the difficulties that some educators would experience depending on the context they teach and the countries they live in.
Eric, thank you so much. This has been such an insightful session about how you're using critical media literacy to support your language learners to have greater awareness of social issues inside the classroom and in their communities and as global citizens, and even moving to taking social action, again, online, through multiple modalities, through multiple languages. It's been very inspiring. I'm Jen.
I'm Rob.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you.